All right, welcome to the Explainer. We're completely surrounded by concrete. We see it as the ultimate symbol of strength. But what if I told you that our entire modern world, built on this supposedly rock-solid foundation, is actually slowly crumbling from the inside out? Today, we're digging into the hidden science of concrete repair. I mean, think about it for a second. We trust our lives to these massive concrete structures every single day. You've got towering skyscrapers, sprawling bridges, colossal dams. We just take their permanence for granted. They're the very definition of solid, right? Yeah, but there's this hidden story of decay that's happening right under our feet and over our heads. It's a slow, silent process, and it threatens the very infrastructure we all depend on. And look, this isn't just some hypothetical problem. To put this in perspective, just one single survey of bridges in India found over 6,000 of them were structurally distressed. That's thousands of critical pieces of infrastructure at risk. And you better believe it's a story that's repeating itself all over the world. So this brings us to what you would call the great paradox of concrete. How can something so incredibly strong also be so, well, so fragile? The answer, it turns out, isn't really in the concrete itself, but in a fatal flaw in how we thought about it for decades. You see, for decades after it was introduced, we just built with reinforced concrete under this assumption that it was indestructible. But then, by the 1970s, a pretty harsh reality started to set in. Structures were failing way sooner than anyone had ever predicted. The myth of its infinite life was just shattered. Okay, so to really understand why our concrete structures are failing, we need to look past the surface and peer inside at the real enemy, the enemy within. Now, this might surprise you, but the problem usually isn't the concrete itself. Nope, it's the hidden partner that's buried deep inside of it, the steel reinforcement bars, or as they're called, rebar. The steel skeleton is what gives concrete all its tensile strength, but ironically, it's also its greatest weakness. The process is called corrosion, and it's basically like a cancer growing completely unseen inside the concrete. Through this electrochemical process, the steel rebar starts to revert to its more stable, natural state, which is iron oxide, something we all know as plain old rust. And what's really fascinating about this process is just the sheer force involved. As that rebar rusts, it can expand to more than 6 times its original volume. Think about that. It acts like a powerful hydraulic jack, generating this immense internal pressure, enough to literally break the concrete apart from the inside. It's a slow-motion explosion. Okay, so if you see a crack, the obvious solution is to just patch it, right? Well, it turns out that obvious solution is precisely where most repairs go disastrously wrong. I know it seems so logical, but this is the #1 mistake people make, and it's the very reason why so many repairs are pretty much doomed from the moment they even start. And this chart, wow, it really illustrates the issue perfectly. The data shows that a staggering 38% of repair failures are because of bad design, and another 16% happen because the real problem, the root cause of the corrosion, was never even diagnosed in the first place. The best way to think about it is like putting a Band-Aid on a broken bone. These cosmetic fixes, they hide the visible damage, but they do absolutely nothing to stop the internal corrosion. That just continues to spread, making the whole problem even worse. So this really highlights the crucial difference in approach. A cosmetic fix is just a temporary illusion. A true scientific repair, on the other hand, is designed from the ground up to be a durable, long-term solution. And that leads us to the modern approach, treating concrete repair not as simple construction work, but as a diagnostic science. You know, a real concrete specialist acts more like a doctor. They don't just treat the symptom, the crack. They actually conduct a thorough investigation to diagnose the underlying disease before they even think about prescribing a treatment. They ask all these critical questions to make sure the fix isn't just a patch, but the right, durable solution for that specific problem. They're considering everything from material chemistry to the total cost over the structure's entire lifespan. So yeah, this isn't a job for a generalist. It demands deep, specialized knowledge of materials, chemistry, and structural engineering to get it right the first time. Okay, let's zoom out for a second and see why this matters on a much, much larger scale. This isn't just about fixing a few cracks. It's about building a more sustainable and resilient future for all of us. Get this. The estimated cost of corrosion is a massive 3 to 4% of a nation's entire gross domestic product. That is a truly staggering amount of money being lost to what is essentially rust. And that's why choosing to properly repair and maintain the infrastructure we already have, instead of constantly demolishing and rebuilding, is just smarter economically. And it's far, far better for the environment. So if you take away one thing from this, it should be that we need a huge mindset shift. We have to see our infrastructure not as something that's disposable, but as a valuable asset that's worth preserving scientifically for generations to come. At the end of the day, fixing concrete isn't just about patching a hole you can see. It's about understanding and stopping an invisible chemical reaction. It's science, plain and simple. So, the next time you see a crack in the pavement, what story is it going to tell you? Are you going to see just a surface flaw? Or are you going to see the evidence of a hidden battle between chemistry and physics happening deep, deep inside?